Good morning, everyone. This is Natalie with Women of Consciousness, and we are excited today to talk about the vision for Women of Consciousness, what we stand for, how we want to support humanity, our community, and people, and how do we move forward. And as you know, Women of Consciousness is sort of an offshoot of Spirit and Coffee, but also it is a um, partnership with to make the vision bigger. And how do we want to co-create something bigger for humanity? So I'm with my, of course, my business partner in our collaboration. And as you guys know, you know where how Spirit and Coffee started. If you don't, it was a time where I was reading a book that was like so profound to me. Wanted everybody to read it. And of course, people, I was like, people are not going to read. So I'm not saying that people don't read, but most people don't read. And so I decided to get on and start reading the book. And that's how Spirit and Coffee came about. It was the Christ Consciousness, or the Christ Blueprint 13 Keys to Christ Consciousness was the book I was reading at the time. And then Spirit and Coffee kind of became this podcast. And now, after so much time of being away, and now in a partnership. And so the partnership is in collaboration with Linda School of Alchemy, and Kane Women of Consciousness. So Pam can sort of talk about her personal vision, and then how we kind of married these visions together to co-create Women of Consciousness. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. Good morning. Um, yeah, I would say my vision came at least 5 years ago, maybe a little bit sooner. It was a culmination of a few things. One, I had worked in the public school system, and just really, got to experience kind of, what that looked like in today's society, and kids with a lot of anxiety and depression, a lot more, I think, fears just based on what they have to go through, the culture of everything. And then I went to school with the JFK program and was learning a lot of things. I was on my own healing journey. And it was really recognizing like where I had felt the school system had kind of failed us as, this public, right, as a human collective. It's more about just learn this and learn that to be, I would say like a 9 to 5 B, rather than to be more creative and your own unique individual. Um, and then I did ayahuasca in Peru, and that's really when I started getting like a bigger vision of creating my own kind of campus, and really looking at how we could teach people, right, from children to adults, just what psychology means, how the body is really wired, um, all of these things that are truly important in understanding like relationships, interpersonal, and such. And it became a bigger vision than I knew I could do. And so it was like, something I would draw out on like little pieces of paper and stick up on my walls, just to kind of try to manifest it through this like vision board type mentality. But I knew I needed networking systems. I couldn't create a school on my own. Um, and then over the years, it was like retreats kind of popped up in there, and starting to like see visions of, working with adults that just kind of want to come and learn and have a place to escape from, maybe city life, and just really noticing, ways that they could connect with nature, connect with themselves, learn about astrology, learn, maybe about how to do tarot and incorporate that in daily life, and notice like this bigger structure to life playing out around them. Um, so then, yeah, it just kind of incorporated together, and I just waited and kind of waited, and thought, is this a fantasy of what it could be one day, or is this something I'm actually going to be able to create? Um, and then, yeah, just kind of alignments have shaped in the past year. Those people, those networks that I think I was waiting for, have really shaped and come forward. And so that's kind of where I'm at, taking this, long held vision fantasy of vision boards and what could be and what's possible. And now finding a way to get into the action stage of really creating and building it into the material physical world.
Yeah, that's really good. So part of it is, I think, and what I see, and I think even our listeners and individuals who show up on the show have this internal calling. And that's typically what happens when people are sort of on this vibrational frequency, as they call it, our
Mm,
consciousness is vibrating at a certain level, or at a certain vibrational tone, where
mm,
we start to connect with individuals, and they're searching for this way. There's a vision that maybe the collective can see. And
mhm,
together, it starts to look for other individuals that are seeing this same vision. And I see more and more individuals starting to wake up and really see the vision,
mm,
and start to see, what is possible, with these current systems that we are operating in. They're not working anymore. We see that things are just getting out of control. You know what I mean? It's just weird. It's almost, you go out there and you go you go out into humanity, and you're like, what the hell? What am I in, like the twilight zone, or what is going on? And it gets weirder by the second, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so these visions of recreating a world, and I had a very good conversation with a friend of mine also, and I know you have with your other partners and stuff like that, that you're we're trying to co-create with, are having this similar vision of sort of getting back to the basics, and reconnecting with earth, reconnecting with, raw material, the organics, and there's already communities out there doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people who are trying to recreate a different system. And so I think the vision for, women of consciousness is looking at this system that's sort of fragmented and kind of all over the place in some ways. It's kind of getting out of control, right? There's just too much fragments that we can't hold together. And I think that we're trying to make sense of it all, to bring it all together, so that so it's cohesive, right? And so that it works
Mm,
well together. And so I think people are seeing this vision.
yeah.
And I think part of what you're saying is, you had this bigger vision for, what's possible for
Yeah.
the future generations, and, that there's hope
Yeah.
for future generations. Because in talking to my friend that was like, well, we're headed towards the dark ages. Like, people don't realize this, that we're,
Mm,
things got to get worse before they get better. And I think that us with foresight, clairvoyance, or can see or feel that something is not right. Like, people have been feeling it for a while. They just don't know what to do.
exactly.
It's and we're getting out of that phase of, like, ego, right? Where it's like, "Oh, I have the way." I think people are realizing, like, "No, this is a collective thing." And then that's kind of where I've been, because 'cause I've been through my, we all gotta go through our ego, and I've had to check my ego many times where I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" You know, this is not just, and then I keep saying it, you already know my favorite line is, "This work doesn't get done alone." That I
Absolutely.
think as the collective, we have to rise together, and we have to start sharing our gifts, and the time is now. We're all
Yeah.
being called, and I think that the people, especially the ones that show up to podcasts like this, that are searching and looking, we're not the only ones who are doing something like this, but people are searching for people to collaborate, to manifest or make this vision actually come true. Because as my friend said, we're going to go through the dark ages, and perhaps we're not going to be the ones who suffer the most from it, but the generations to come will. So what are we going to leave behind? How are we going to support, those individuals that are going to come out of that dark age? What is it that we want to create, or what legacy do we, like you said, the word legacy, what do we want to leave behind? What legacy are we trying to create to
Mm.
leave behind? And so I kind of feel like that's, where we're at. So tell me about that. Just go into sort of legacy, right? Like legacy for your school, legacy for women of consciousness, and kind of where you see that headed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Like you had said one time, like I'm leaving a legacy of wisdom, and that was just so beautiful. And I feel the same. Like it's all of my experiences. It's everything that I was meant to come here to go through, and now like there's meaning to that. And so it's more than just a legacy of money and greed, but a legacy where people can really thrive based on what we've paved and have left for them. I think about people who write books, and here it is 100 years later, and it's like, wow, they were so ahead of their time, and they knew where we were going as a civilization, and they left just like all these clues. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing in a way, that one day maybe somebody will see my work and understand, like, wow, she really got the structure of how the universe creates itself. And, she was really trying to help other people see that there is meaning, to these experiences and this soul purpose that we find ourselves kind of navigating. Um, I just feel like when we look at history, like you said, right, the dark ages, this collapse, we know systems don't last. Like they have their rise and they have their fall. And I truly believe in the Western civilization. We are embracing the age of Aquarius, and there will be a collapse of structures, and they need to collapse. It doesn't have to be something that drives us into fear and makes us try to avoid that, but rather we can embrace it, and we can know, like, okay, we're going to survive, even if it looks different. um and so I think that kind of fills me with hope in a way, knowing, like, yes, we can go back to these more ancient, indigenous, sustainable and simple kind of ways of living.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what it is. It's like I think our ego grows so huge, it kind of feels like the master of the universe.
Right.
Really,
Man.
our egos can, like, really get very inflated very quickly, and,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of that, and then before you know it, it's like, something has to counterbalance that ego inflation, right? Where it's like, "All right, you are not the center," and, nature puts us in our place real quick to show us, like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, no, you're not the
Yeah.
center of all things," right? But but we do have this beautiful, sort of magnificence being human, that we can co-participate with it and know that we are. Like, we're 100% aware that we're, like, co-participating, but our ego just sort of, just is like, "Hey, I'm in charge," and something that really kinda drives me crazy, that I'm not necessarily on board with, is the fact that we have dominion over all things, and that's not true in my
Yeah.
worldview. I don't carry that. I think that we co-participate with all things, and that, life is about that co-participation, not necessarily like, "Hey, I'm the center of everything, and I know everything," and it's like, not no, there are things we do not know. And even science itself, because a lot of people who are maybe more scientific, um, and want the facts and the proof, are even realizing they don't know what the hell's going on. So nobody
Right.
really knows. We could never really truly know everything, and the ego itself
Yeah.
kind of tricks itself that it does, right? It's even like it's with the cosmology, we took that cosmology class, and it just, like, blows my mind that the Ouroboros, they're reusing it to kinda describe the evolution of everything, right? Is, you know, that we are the center of we are the center of it all, which just it drives me nuts that they put us at the center of all matter, right? It's like, stop
Mm,
putting human being, we're not the center.
yeah.
We don't even know what else is out there. We just can't get enough of ourselves.
I know, I remember in school, it was like, "We are the top of the pyramid chain," you know? Like, here's the humans, and then, like, all of the other species are listed below it, and so you're, like, taught as a kid to think, like, we have this superiority above everything else, and so talk about ego inflation from the start. Um,
And then and not funny, but nature shows us real quick who's in charge, right? And then you have
yeah.
floods and you have fires and you have all these things, and nature's like, sure, right? But we have a let's see, science is garbage, ego all the way. Right. They think man is the shit, mega inflation. It is. And it's funny, but humans do have a really cool we're in this cool spot, and I wished humanity would wake the flippers up, because the reality is we are kind of cool. We are a cool species. We could be cool, but we overinflate our ego, and then you know what I mean? And then we're not so
Yeah,
cool because
right.
we're just doing weird shit. And it's like, but we have the potential to be so cool. Like, we have but and then it's just like these few and then it's weird because these few individuals will kind of like shape the narrative, right? They're like, well, hey, you're under our dream, you're under our narrative, you're gonna follow what we tell you to do, which is just kind of crazy to me. And I think that was been my biggest issue and challenge. Like, I'm a heretic, right? Because I'm always like, hey, I don't believe in your narrative. It doesn't even make sense. Like,
Mm,
first of all, these rules and everything you're doing don't even make sense to me. Like, why? And then I get in trouble for asking questions, or, we're the people, right, that speak up, ask questions. It's like, don't ask, just do it. And you're just
yeah,
like, what? Like, I don't believe this narrative. It's totally false, right? But I think we had the opportunity to be kind of cool and as a species and create and co-participate with life, but our ego kind of takes over, and then that's
yeah,
where things get kind of weird and wonky. So I think in the development, like the human development, and how we develop in consciousness, right? In that strategy to recognize that, oh wow, we do have this cool opportunity. Yeah, cool being the word. I guess that's the buzzword today. To co-create with humanity. I think that's where we're at. I think that's where we're headed. At least that's where I see women of consciousness, right? Is just like, collaborating with our brothers and sisters to recreate, redesign
mhm,
this the new narrative, right?
yes,
Which is really not new, but it's a reintegration of the things that have worked in the past, right? With kind of this understanding that we've kind of been super inflated through ego,
yeah.
if you will. So, yeah, go ahead, Pam. What do you have to say?
Oh, no, I mean, I totally agree. It's gotten way out of hand because everybody's all about, individualism and just kind of being, like their own person. And like, we really just suck at being humans, honestly. like, like, I think you're right. There's so much potential where we could be so much better. But we're just letting these systems and these structures completely control us,
Mhm.
and we're not happy and we're
Mhm.
just
Nope.
bending over or bowing down and allowing it to happen. And for me, I have this like little fiery like activist, that's kind of quiet inside, but there's moments where like I'll feel her just kind of rising up and wanting it to all burn down, and knowing like if we rose together, like, oh man, if we could just come together and revolt in a sense. And I think that's why I love some of the 60s and what they were doing, trying to change, really
Really.
trying to bring those shifts about.
Yeah.
So I think and I feel like every now and then we get close.
Yeah.
and then the government just is like, "Shoo, no, they can't be, they know that we have power, so they want to seize that power." So we're just like, oh, okay. So we all just kind of walk away, go back in the house, close the doors. And it's like, no, go back to like the picket lines.
Yeah.
But again, not in a violent way either. It's not about raising our voice and standing in our power to harm and control others, but about just being heard and knowing like we are awake and we are aware, and they can't keep lying to us and trying these illusions and things. And that's where we're just evolving to as a collective species. It is waking up, and we are meant to let the structure fall apart and rebuild it.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's a good time for us to start doing that, right? And I think the people are getting call, right? It's like
Mm,
people are waking up, they're hearing the call, they know there, but then they feel helpless. Like, how do I do this? How am I supposed to play my part? The reality is, for listeners out there, if you're on here, I see might be a few people, and thank you for participating.
mm.
The dude, Sean, I appreciate that. I like when people put stuff in the chat, but you know, I mean, it's such a huge, we call it in living systems is a theory. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it's called complex problems. We create complex problems, humans do. And the more that we try to fix them, the more complex they become, right? Um, these complex problems cannot be solved by, just one way of thinking, one narrative. We've created such crazy, convoluted narratives that we don't even know how to get ourselves out of it. In fact, they have to use supercomputers to like outthink the humans on how to, solve these big world problems that we're facing. And the reality is we do and we can. I wouldn't say solve the problem, it's just get back to basics, right? So people feeling very helpless out there and they don't know which direction to go in. It's stick to the basics, right? Remember, I always say, remember nature, go out in nature and be with the trees, be with the wind, be with the
Mm,
birds. Start to remember because it helps you to wake up and remember who you are. You are that interconnected being to all.
yeah.
There's you're beautifully interwoven into the entire narrative of the planet, of the cosmos,
Mm,
and sometimes we forget that because of the hustle and bustle, and it is because of the narratives that are be written for us, right? Someone is writing your narrative right now. If you're not writing your narrative, somebody's writing your narrative. Well, who is
yeah.
they? Well, I would say part of it is the government, of course. They're going to write the narrative and they're damn good at getting that narrative out the way that they want to, right? and
Right.
and people will follow the narrative or they won't, and some people rebel against the narrative, but here's the deal, those that rebel against it become they're heretics again, right? They're crazy or they get nailed to
Yeah.
the cross, and sometimes it's hard to be that individual that kind of sticks out even in the collective. But those people who dare to say, "Hey, something ain't right here," tend to be the ones that go down in history, and they're like, "Oh, we should have kind of listened."
Yeah. Yeah.
We should kind of maybe listen to what they were saying. Oh, but
Um,
the narrative itself, right, that we're living under, is shifting and changing. And if you follow science, because science is, um, it's a way of looking at the world. It's a way. It's not the only way, right? We have our own personal experiences with life as well. Um, and there are things that are it can't be explained by science fully, right? They're all theoretical. However, even in the theory of science, even in these theoretical models, they don't know what the hell's going on. They're looking for a new narrative. And I
yeah.
always tell people, unless we are the ones creating it, guess what? They're creating it for us.
Yep.
So, those that are feeling like the call is there, you guys are welcome to co-participate with Women of Consciousness. It's not a siloed thing. It's not a one person thing. In fact, it was designed for collaboration and connection and for those individuals who are looking to co-create a different way of life, a different way of being. And that's, I think with Pam, like she said, even down to the children, how do we re-educate these children? How do we get them to understand that they are co-participating in this world? and they're not just some robot that needs to remember a bunch of things to go out and do this 9 to 5 job, right? The way that they want us to. There's something missing from our education. There's
Yeah.
something missing from humanity. Purpose is a lot of it. Like,
Yep.
I can ask, like, our listeners right now, people that are still on here listening, and you could type in the chat, "Do you know your purpose?" If someone said, "What is your purpose?" And do you know your purpose? That's the question.
Mm.
And then they'd be like, "Well," some people would say, "I don't know, whatever." I don't know what people would say. Then it's like, "But are you living your purpose?"
Yeah.
Maybe you and then maybe you know it, maybe you've gotten that far, but are you living it? Yep, purpose. Awesome. And you could share what your purpose is here, right? Um, so if you're living your purpose and you're what is your purpose? Is there opportunity for co-collaboration? Like, how do we share resources, right? How do we become a network of individuals who can share resources to sort of create this new kind of way of designing the world. That's what we need right now. We need
Yeah.
those individuals to
Right?
rise.
It's not a
And look,
competition. It's not every man for themselves because that has gotten us nowhere. But hatred and diversity and war. And so I agree. It is definitely about coming together and collaborating and sharing like my gifts and my potentials because all it does is strengthen us. I mean, absolutely. And I think that's the mentality, the perspective that we need to start recognizing.
yeah, and he
Mm.
says they keep us, just making money, yeah, watching TV, yeah, and then the
Yeah.
narrative of money and what money is, right? The abundance consciousness and
Yeah.
scarcity mindset, and, I think a collaboration between individuals, the people that hear the vision and the call. There needs to be a container that collaborates, that allows us to collaborate, cross connection, right? Because there are communities that are rising, and those
Mhm.
communities have their way, and then other communities rise, but we need to be able to have some line of communication where we're saying, "Hey, what are you doing in your community that could benefit our community?" And, if we can stay sort of building our communities and reintegrating these things, then we can see ourselves through these dark times that are about to hit. Like, it's just inevitable. There,
Absolutely.
it is, and
Yeah.
that's just where humanity goes, right? You said it's the ebb and flow, it's the narrative, it's the story.
Yeah.
We systems fall and collapse all the time.
Mm.
That's part of it. I mean, think about your own life. Your own life is that way, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly
I feel
falling
like it's
flat on our
the
face.
yeah, no, it's definitely like the goal of something bigger than us, whether it's the planet, the universe, consciousness in itself. We don't have control. We are not the designers or the architects of that aspect of yeah, life in itself. And so it's seeing, like you had said, co-create, co-participate, and that's the key. We are in this cosmic dance, and there's the magical and the mystical that is taking the lead. And we need to recognize that, and we need to step back from ego and control and power and greed and just see like what is the bigger purpose for humanity and consciousness. And I think it really is leading us back to this awakened awareness of oneness and recognizing I am one with nature, I am one with the universe, I'm one with this person and that animal. Because everything's energy. It's a vibrational energy, like you were saying earlier, that has its own frequency. And we need to
Yeah,
come in harmony. We're just in such an orchestra of like disharmony, and we've got to tune it up.
I know. Let's tune up. We're gonna tune ourselves up. Um, but I do know that people are searching and looking and
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really, yeah, they are. And that's, it's to be understood. Like, I have a friend the other day, it's like just filled with so much emotion and feeling like they don't know what their purpose is, and that's kind of the place of I told her it's either existential crisis or spiritual emergency,
Mm.
um, where all of a sudden you wake up and, we see more and more of that happening, right? Where people are like, I'm awake, I'm getting downloads, I'm this and that. And it's good. That's a good thing. It's good to know that people are starting to like say, what the hell kind of, I say, curse am I under? Or what kind of weird, distorted narrative have I
Yeah.
been living in? And they start to wake up, but waking up is not fun. Like,
No.
people think it's this glorified thing, and I'm like, good luck. And do you know what you're asking for when you say, hey, please show me the way? Because
Oh,
you're gonna
man.
start facing some pretty crazy stuff. It's like the hero's
Yeah.
journey, right? That we
Yep.
talk about, where the existential crisis comes, your personal development stages, where your ego, is starting to die, where you realize there's something beyond.
Yeah.
The ego's kept you alive, which is not bad. Ego is not a bad thing. It's when it's inflated and thinks it's the master of all things, that things start to go really bad. And then before you know it, your ego gets a slap in the face by maybe your soul, right? Your soul purpose, where it's like, haha, you don't have the will. That's not how it's going to work. But the awakening or getting downloads is not always, it's not a walk in the park. It's not
No.
fun.
No.
So nobody would say, "Yo, this is the best thing I've ever done." Well, it will be eventually, but you're gonna not it's gonna be hard during the journey,
Yeah.
during the awakening, and I think what ends up happening is you almost go like, "Who the hell am I? I don't
Mhm.
even know who I am." And then you feel this emptiness or this loneliness or this, your friends don't even you can't relate to the people around you
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
You're
They
having
start
to let
falling away.
go. Yep. You have
Yeah.
to let go, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
you have to let go of the people around you, sometimes your family even.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you're
Oh,
like
yeah. Big time.
and I know, I was like, mostly your family, and your kids
Yeah.
and everything. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have kids, so disregard that one.
No, it's
Like,
true,
we're
though.
not on the same page. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but, just to add
Especially,
some
yeah, especially when you
yeah,
start dealing with the intergenerational, like, traumas, and for people that have a choice, like, do I repeat the cycle or do I break the pattern?
that's
Um,
right. Yep.
yeah, because if you choose to break it, oh, man, that's beautiful and it's amazing, but it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's definitely so much work. And I think it just comes back to, like you had said, the will of the ego. Um, because the soul will keep guiding you and give you what you can handle. It's just the ego that's like, oh man, this is crushing me and killing me, and that's where the death comes in, because it's like, I can't do it anymore, I don't want to do it. It's hard work.
Mhm.
But there is another side of it, and I feel like the only way out is through. And when you accept and embrace that part of your mission and your purpose, and you don't back down to your fear and the wounds that triggered, when you can get through the healing process, there's so much beauty on the other side. And then looking at the hero's journey, there is that elixir of life, right? There is that reward, and the universe does reward you. And I've experienced that many times through my own cycles. And I feel like with the equinox, that's kind of another cycle I'm going in, because it's been an intense year of growth for me personally. And I really have stepped up, and I really have been, coming into my own, through the divine feminine and rising into her power, and knowing like, okay, gonna find a way. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'm gonna figure it out. And I know those people are there. And when I let go of the wrong ones, then the right ones come in.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's hard to let go. I know that I seen, good morning, Ruck. Is
Yeah,
it
good
Ruck?
morning.
Um, letting go of those old, those people, letting go of the friends, letting go of all that. That is like one of the hardest things, and you'll hear it, it's like, well, what do I do? And sometimes I hate to say this, and this is just the journey, right? If you're in an awakening and you're like, yay, I'm just more, what do people say? I'm just more awake than them, or they're just that you could wear that as a banner, but it's not fun. And you're gonna be lonely, and it's gonna be a hard road, and it's not fun. It's not. And guess what? In your life, right? You're gonna be the person in the family that, like, gets the most shit, and that's not fun either because then you
Right?
don't have your people.
Oh, man. That's why they say the black sheep, right? That's
Right.
where it comes
Yeah,
from, because you
I
are
know.
ostracized.
Yep, they're like, "Get out of here, you're calling out my flaws, what about you?" And you're like, "Yeah, I know my flaws, that's the
Yeah.
point. Try not to repeat this." So
Yeah.
and it's a not an easy thing to go through, but I can tell you, like, I've gone through it, and I think for the first time in my life, standing fully in my purpose, recognizing the patterns as they arise because inherently, if you looked at James Hillman, I like his work. I always bring his stuff up,
Yes.
but I really
Yep.
liked his, the acorn theory.
Oh,
Look up
yes.
the acorns. It's like so good, right? It's just good. It's just good shit. So,
Oh, it was
the
such a,
acorn
yeah,
theory.
insightful moment for me when I, yes, dived into that.
I
Absolutely.
know, because I'm like, "Man, this man thought the way I thought, like, and,
Yeah.
and he's dead, which sucks. Everybody I wanna talk to is dead, so I have to have these conversation with the dead. What would you do? But, James Hillman talks about the acorn theory and the patterns that are set, sort of our soul's pattern, and if we can kind of recognize, how these things show up and they're lessons to be learned, then we stop repeating the same issues for so long. So I always make this distinction. I've said it a million times. The difference between the master and the beginner is that the master has failed billions and billions of times and have tried and got up and done it over and over and over again. And so they make what seems nearly impossible for others easy is because they've practiced. There's nothing other than practice. And remember, you guys have your own practices. If that's one thing you'll know, you know, you're gonna find what your practices are, but you will have to let go of people. And that is the hardest part, I think, of the journey. It was for me at least, because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're alone wolf and you want to be by yourself, we still are communal. And that's just inherent in us, right? We like to have community, and when you don't feel connected, you start to get depressed and it's very hard. So it's a hard journey. But the
Mhm.
reality is that there is a community out there for you. There are people that will sort of support you through the process of moving along the journey. But it's not fun. And for those people who are like, I'm a spiritual warrior and they're happy, I'm like, I think you're at the beginning of your process because you're gonna
Yeah.
face your demons, your shadows, right? You're gonna face all these weird, narratives, you're gonna go back to your base programming. Of course, everything's our parents' fault, so that's good. I'm just kidding.
It's all about how you're conditioned.
And then you gotta get over that shit, right? Because you can't make it
Yeah.
about, it's their fault. They were there for a lesson or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but you gotta get to that base programming, which is then the historical narrative that you were talking about, or this
Yep.
historical trauma that you're trying to heal from or whatever. And then it goes back into ancient times and you start looking at history. And so it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And what we realize, like at the base of it, or the core of it all, right, is this tiny seed of purpose that we're trying to get to and trying to blossom, right? But we
Mhm.
have to like extract the weeds and we have to make sure, and then we start to nurture it. And when you start to nurture that purpose, right? And that's even what Women of Consciousness is about, right? It's about, I think both Pam and I pulling the weeds and finding that seed that we can cultivate and grow,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that's kind of what you're looking for. It's like, where's that seed, that tiny little potential within you that's wanting to explode out of you, but you have, the world, you have all of these damn challenges that show up. Some people have, kids and wife, and I'm not saying they're challenges, but they are. Those are
Yep.
challenges too, right? Because you're dealing with another person's perspective and you have more responsibility maybe. And it becomes a challenge. I've had people come on here in the past that were like, I have family and I don't know what to do because, my wife and I don't see things the same way, or, I'm having problems with my kids, or whatever it is that we have to face those relationships, right? and figure out. Life is beautiful no matter the struggles. It's what shapes you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, all of those relationships, like you're saying, have taught us or teach us something, but we have to know
Mm.
the patterns and
Yeah.
understand what they are. Otherwise, well, I mean, you could go on with your life as it is, but if you're searching for purpose and meaning and living your purpose becomes a challenge, becomes a lot harder, because you will have to let go of certain people in order um, to actually make your purpose and find that seed
Yeah.
that's inside of you. But yes, life is beautiful, and hopefully people can recognize that. God, please help people recognize that, right?
Right. I think that's the thing. Sometimes it's an intentional kind of mindset of where can you see the blessings and the beauty, especially for those that really are held down and, in poverty and just kind of victim mentality to systems and communities that don't care about them. So yeah, it's like you kind of almost have to force yourself in some instances to find the beauty and change the narrative.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. But I love the James Hillman thing, like you had said, and the whole acorn theory is about planting, right? Going into the darkness to grow through the darkness. And when you think about the metaphor of this seed in the dark soil, and then it kind of breaks from the shell and starts growing the roots, and then finally starts going upward, that it breaks through the soil and then is now growing, like a tree or a plant above the soil and into the light. And we're the same way. And I think the biggest part of the spiritual kind of awakening is people just want the peace and the harmony, and they just want like the love and the light. And so you have a whole bunch of people now as a collective that are bypassing so much, and they're
Yeah.
trying to avoid the shadows because they've done nothing but be surrounded by that toxicity and that pain and that suffering, that it's like, nope, I got my rose colored glasses on and I'm living in my illusions and I'm spiritual. So the angels are here and life is fantastic. And so even that, it's like there has to be a balance. And
Mhm.
and I think with the equinox coming too, that's definitely, remember your balance, be in that stillness, of equilibrium of day and night, the light and the dark. Um, because again, we are all of that. We are the darkness, we are the light. And the more that we go into our dark subconscious, the more that the light kind of glows and shines, and we're able to integrate and to reclaim those, fragmented pieces of soul. And that's where the narrative shifts and change, because now you can embrace and accept that part of yourself and integrate it back into you. And that's where like the alchemical process really comes in, and that's where, transformation and evolution and, human development or conscious, evolution kind of really plays out on all these levels that we don't understand. And I think that's where again the education system has failed us. Not only have they manipulated what they teach us for their own good, but they don't teach us realistically the concepts of being a human and all that that really incorporates. And so we're self-sabotaging out of fears and pushing, people away, and then we're have attachments to outcomes that we want to make, and then we struggle when we can't live up to that because it's not our destiny. And so it's like, yeah, the more you can learn to just surrender and realize you're not a victim, but you are like the hero and you are creating your own story. And the more that you can participate, I think, with the universe, is where it gets easier. It doesn't let up all the challenges, but it gets easier because the ego surrenders.
It's true, and even if you do what Pam was talking about is what we call spiritual bypassing,
Yeah.
which I totally did, I guess, my whole life. Like, "Hey, I'm just gonna hang out up here," where my dad, my sister, not my mom, but my dad and my sister were like, like my dad, "Normally, life isn't just a joke, it's a," and he would just go on and I'm like, and then my sister, "Oh, you're always in your what did she say? Your field of daisies and flowers." And then I was like, "Leave me alone." But the reality was after I went, through my program, my master's program, JFK, whatever, consciousness studies, is that I realized that I was truly spiritually bypassing some very important narratives that I had to get through,
Yep.
right? And I had to go through this individuation that should have happened when I was a lot younger,
Yep.
and I was just living into this false narrative where I wasn't looking at reality. I really wasn't. I was just like bypassing it all, which and then it was really hard because, you have to go through that like you said, the darkness, but to touch the seed of purpose, right? Go
Mm,
through You have to go through it to touch your seed of purpose, because then once you touch
exactly.
it, it's like Alice in Wonderland. I like these visuals. It's like Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if you ever seen Through the Looking Glass, but watch that movie. At the end of the movie, she's running because time is gonna stop for everybody, and they're just gonna be frozen forever in this scene, but she goes, and at the end, she just touches the spark, and then everything comes back to life again. But I think that scene is so profound. It's always profound for me. I was like, "Oh my god," and that's kinda like you touching your purpose. It's like you're almost gonna be frozen in time. You're gonna repeat the same patterns. You're
Mhm.
gonna until you can really touch your purpose, but you can't do it until you go through all of that crazy darkness that you were talking about. You have to go through it. Um, to be able to touch it, to start co-creating and co-participating, but it's not fun. It's not fun. I don't know, whoever says it's fun and they're like, "Yay, I'm on this journey," and they're so gung ho and happy. I'm like, either you've spiritually bypassed or you're at the point where you're like, "I get to live my purpose fully and I'm excited about it." And that's a beautiful place to be in. That's what I
Yeah,
hope for humanity. I hope that
absolutely.
every individual could feel that, because
Yep.
to live it, that's the reward, right? It's just like mining for gems. You don't go out into a mine and just find gems. You have to freaking go and drill and drill and drill until you find the gem. And it's the same thing with us. We have to go in there and dig and search and then touch it. And then once we touch it, man, it's like, whoa. Then things start to like you said, we start to grow roots, we start to grow up, we start to create. And so it's really, really awesome. I want to read what they're saying. Yeah, mega churches are definitely money driven, not actually help people. Yeah. The biggest crime to humanity is taxes. Yeah. And there's a thing that a friend of mine said, because they talk about, Jesus Christ and stuff like that. Like I like to talk about all the different, religions and stuff like that. But Jesus Christ, they call the greatest creditor. And there's something they says, give unto Caesar's what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. Give them their taxes, because at the end of the day, we can't eat money, right? So if we were to co-create or to come together as a collective and create these tiny communities, right? Which is it's a big thing. It's not a little thing. Is how do we come together to grow our own food? Could you imagine a community that's like self-sufficient, doesn't even need money, right? Doesn't need to do all that because they can grow their own food, they can
Yeah.
survive on their own, they have shelter and their safety,
Yeah.
and they can eat. That's really all we need at the end of the day, right? But they've created for sure this narrative, um, that a barter system. Wish I lived somewhere like that. Well, and that's what we're trying to co-create here, by
Yep.
the way. That's the vision of Women of Consciousness. That's what we got on today to talk about, is the vision. And, I think we're circling to that point now where it's like we are trying to figure out what that would look like. But
Yeah.
again, it doesn't get done alone.
Absolutely. No.
We can't do it alone. That's why I'm so grateful for Pam, right? Because forever I was like, Spirit and Coffee saw the vision, but
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this by myself, you know?
Mm,
And that's where we are today. We're looking at how do we create a system. I'm sure there are communities already doing it. Um, and we have a vision that might be a little bit different, where schools, like our own schools, our own food, exactly. So that's what we're talking about.
yep.
A system that honors and maybe even does, these old, kind of rituals that were so critical for humanity that were taken out too. Rites of passage,
Yeah.
these things that we need to do in order to overcome these crises that we're going through now as adults. It's crazy. It's like our existential crisis that we're having, they dealt with it when they were teenagers in a ritual, right? It's like,
Right?
yo. And if we looked at it for women, it was like, "Hey, you're gonna have your period now, so we're gonna go have a rites of passage. We're gonna teach you how that works." In our society, especially the Western world, that does not happen. I didn't
No.
even have a talk. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know? Right? And then for men, they don't really have a rites of passage either, and we see a lot of confusion in society around that? There's
Yeah.
a lot of narratives that I personally am not on board with. Why? Because not that there has to be these gender roles, but there are rites of passage for genders, right? That are very different. We are very different in ways, right? Like women bleed, men will never bleed. They're not going to bleed. We have cramps. There's things that we experience that a man never can. But as a woman, I'm never going to be able to experience what a man experiences. And I'm not even going to go into what that is because it's probably not going to work for this talk. But but the rites of passage are critical, right? When men are going through their change, right? And their testosterone's high and they had rites of passage. Well, we
Yeah.
don't do that anymore, right? It's like, oh, go to these sites that show these, you know what I mean? It's all convoluted
Mm.
and the psyche, the collective unconscious has this weird narrative around those rites of passage for men and women.
Yeah.
And so they've been misplaced. So farming and growing food is probably healthy. Just laboring will keep you healthy minded, better health for yeah, it is. Do you the dude Sean, do you do farming and stuff like that? Or so and where are you located? Where are you guys located? So you guys tell us where you are, the ones that are participating. I like when people participate and say, like, where are you guys around the world? Are you here in the United States? I'm in Virginia. All right, cool. Do you
Yeah.
farm? We're looking to create this stuff. Like there's no way I could do this I don't
Yeah.
farm. I would love to, but that I was like socialized and put into this
Uh,
society.
and that's part of my vision for my school system is to have like farmland and to be sustainable so kids are out there learning how to do the agricultural aspect of life and then take it from farm to table and be able again to be able to feed the kids at the lunch hour from what they were just out there making in the garden that morning,
Hell yeah.
and then having animals. So I have a huge
Hell yeah.
vision for that part of school.
Yeah.
And I think
Bar
going back to what you said about the whole rite of passage and initiations, I think that was where we found our soul purpose. Like when and that's missing. So like that purpose isn't showing up for 12-year-olds. You're not figuring out like that connection to your soul because you're not naked out alone, in the land for 2 weeks trying to survive, and I think that's a huge piece. And when I went to South America 5 years ago, like this has been one of the most profound impactful stories of my life, but I realized that that month I spent down traveling in Sacred Valley and doing ayahuasca and going to Machu Picchu, that was my initiation. That was my rite of passage.
Mhm.
And I was hungry and I was alone and I cried a lot. And yet I was still in the beauty of the experience and so happy and to have been called and to have listened to the call. But I can remember standing on top of Machu Picchu after the ayahuasca, after like opening my heart chakra and feeling like a lighthouse, feeling like this beacon. And I remember just going into this meditative state and being like, okay, where are my fellow light workers? Like, where are you guys? Like, I know that you're out there and like answer the call, like go through the work, do it because like I'm calling you on behalf of the planet and the universe to this very moment where you need to awaken. And it took 5 years, but now I can see like, oh wow, like here is everybody that has answered and is taken this path. um because it's about following the passion and the purpose. And I know for me, that's a teacher. Like I am always going to want to educate. I'm always going to work with that Hermes energy of wisdom and whatnot, and the goddess energy of all of her wisdom. And, but I can't fit in this public school systems. I tried. Right now I'm subbing here and there, and I'm just kind of doing it as research for my school. Um, but
Here's
yeah,
what not to do.
right, exactly. Or how can we do it better? How can we take that 1 minute morning meditation and turn that into an hour practice or
Yeah.
whatnot, or really dive into feelings beyond what's happy and sad. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many other ways, and for me, it is looking more at like the occult in a sense, and bringing that metaphysical kind of way of being into the actual like book smarts and things of it.
Absolutely, because like storytelling time and all these like the kids have a vivid imagination. They can imagine a world that's something beyond our own understanding, right? That's like that that childhood. It's almost like in spiral dynamics, it's like the purple, mystical, magical. How do we create that? You know what I mean? And they're tapped into something magical and mystical. They are not 100% aware of science, and the laws of science are the laws of you know what I mean, like in their mind, this cup can float, and it's going to float, and it can fly, and I can fly, and it's
Right.
like, but then they're not 100% aware that we live in this kind of 3D dense world yet, you know what I mean? But their imaginations are beyond our understanding, but we just don't even allow that anymore either. It's like, don't have an imagination, let's rip that all away.
Yeah.
When I was subbing, I just remember them being in cubicle like things, and they were called test protectors, and I didn't even know what that meant, right? So I was subbing and they're like, go get the test protectors. They're like, ask this little girl, she'll get it. So I was like, hey, who's whatever, Jane, let's say her name was Jane. And so the little girl comes up and I'm like, hey, do you know what test protectors are? Because I didn't know, right? And she's like, yeah. And then I said, okay, well, go get them. We have to do our homework now. This is the time. She gets these like, it looked like those cubbies. They like created them with like cubbies so that they couldn't cheat off of each other. So it looked like they were in cubicles. And I was like so mortified that I'm
Yeah.
like, this is not how real life operates. Like, if I
Right.
don't know something, I am going to go to somebody who does. I'm gonna ask them for support. You know what I mean? I'm not just gonna be in my own little cubby trying to figure things out on my own. If I don't understand something, I don't understand it. You know what I mean? I need
Yeah.
support. I need help.
Yeah.
And it was just like, to me, was this eye opener of like, holy crap, like what the hell have we come to? They got one recess. I'm like, what? How are they only outside once a day? Like
Yeah.
for 10 minutes or something. I'm like, no, these kids need to be out here for like most of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
They need to be connecting to the earth and running around and letting go of all that energy.
Mm.
Um, and just, yeah, it's pretty sad what the education system has come to. I think we all know it. There's stuff going on right now. I don't really watch the news and stuff, but my friends, I'm on this Telegram post where they put, private Telegram stuff where they're putting stuff about education. I'm reading what's going on with the education system. Like, what in the world are these people doing? And I'm just like, wow. So we need to recreate these things, and we need to follow, I think, the development of the child, right?
Yeah.
Like really follow. We're trying to put these like little things into adulthood at like a small age, and we're not letting them have the experience of healthy development, right? As human beings.
Yeah. They
It's
just
like,
need play. Play.
yeah, and
They
that's
need
and that's
play. They need imagination and play. They don't need
exactly
to
that's
sit down and be forced to like not move their bodies
And
and
so you're in a 9 to 5
yeah.
job at 6 years old. So get to work. And you're like,
Right.
oh, you're like, I thought adulting didn't happen until until
Mm.
I was older. Why am I adulting at 7? What the hell? So
Right?
these poor kids. But I think, we're trying to figure that out. Let's see what this is. I'm letting go of the narrative of COVID lockdowns. One day I'll have been able to do this. is van life. I have an ex who used to live in his van, by the way. Um,
So
and then
want
absolutely
still want
not
that.
given speed or Adderall or yeah, oppress their needs to play and grow. Absolutely. That
Yeah,
Adderall craziness. I'm like, you're just mad because y'all don't have the energy to keep up with them. How about if
right?
okay, this is gonna sound very judgmental, but how about these people start to eat properly, the teachers, so they can keep up with the kids instead of sitting down. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up because it starts not Um, let's see, let's see, I've been able van life, yeah, and I think, so we're getting up on an hour, probably should be ending soon, but I do wanna say one thing about, um, van life or, being out on the road and stuff, it's really good. I don't know, dude, oh my god, you nailed it. I've never occurred to me that they're skipping childhood and becoming worker bees. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
totally
they're
are.
conditioning them to
It's
the
great.
school system is so similar to how the jail system is run. And when you look at the similarities there, like that's frightening. That is so
Mhm.
frightening that we are like running our jail systems and our school systems based off of pretty much the same exact models of like routine driven obediency. And that shit's got to go. I'm sorry. When it comes to like my vision of the school, like I wanted to know the kids birth charts. Like that's my biggest thing. Like I feel like birth charts, I want to know your top 3, your sun, your moon, and your rising, because right there that's going to tell me what kind of person like you came here to experience being, and what your personality traits are and your gifts, and how I can um, help you find that potential and tap into that part. And I think it's like, no, they're just seen as little machines. Just line up, fall in place, do what you're told. Don't talk back. Like it's gotta fall apart and be rebuilt.
Yeah, our and it's sad because they're the future, right? Of course the government is shaping the narrative. Of course these, because why? Because they need a population that does what they need them to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what happens? It falls apart. So we're at the breaking point at this point, and I think people are really like, what now? What do we do? I don't think it's too late.
Mm.
I guess there was a point in my life, where I started Spirit and Coffee. I'm like, are we too late for this? But I don't think so. I think
No.
that we have this, opportunity to co-participate, co-collaborate.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're looking for, like I said, with Women of Consciousness. We'll have our website up soon. What we're doing, how we're working with different systems and stuff like that, what we're trying to create. And eventually, hopefully, not hopefully, eventually we will have land. And that land will
Yes.
be able to, drive this mission and vision, and we'll see how far we can get. Like I told Pam, I'll see how far I can get with my vision. I'm going to give it everything I have.
Exactly.
And
Me too.
let's see how old I am. I mean, we may or may not make it, but we're going to give it all we can.
That's why
Make
we
it
keep
happen.
saying legacy.
Yeah, it's a legacy, so it'll go on. Hopefully, we can pass the baton or the torch to other individuals as we, create this, but it's
Yeah.
gonna take a lot of work and it's gonna take co-participation, so can't do it alone,
Yeah.
and we
And a
shouldn't be
lot of
doing it alone.
support.
It takes community. It
Yeah.
takes community and support, but living off the land, if you do the van life, it's possible. Like I said, I had an ex who do it, but if you have children or if you have a wife, don't expect, them to wanna join you on journey. Just want to put that out there. And especially women, I'm going to tell you right now, van life sounds very good. It's not as good for a woman who menstruates every month. So I just want to put that out there for my male listeners. We need a bathroom, okay? you know, we don't, you don't understand the things that we have to deal with. Um, and van life isn't the best place. We need a shower and we definitely need a bathroom, unless we have gone through the change of life and we're older. So I could see myself at 60, 70 years old doing van life and loving it. But right now, as I still have not gone through my change of life, I can say, hell no. I need a place that I need a shelter,
Aw,
gym shower. Yeah, I know.
I
Just
love
be alone.
traveling cross country in my car. Like, A van would be nice. I totally wouldn't mind having the off-road, I mean, no roots kind of RV life. I'm definitely down for that.
Okay, RV life's different though, because it does have a restroom
Yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
does have a shower.
I don't want a lot, but I want a little comfort. And that's one
That
thing in
too.
life. It's like
We're
getting
women.
comfortable with all the discomfort.
Look, we're women. Let's be real. Women have different needs than men, and I can tell you right now, I can tell the only reason I can tell you this is because my ex, it was van life and wanted me to be about that life, and I'm like, "Dude, I need access to a bathroom all the time, right? For one." And especially when I'm menstruating, because that would be a mess, and I'm not trying to clean up all the time. So, you know, so for me, I need that comfort, and I think that's where, women come from. But if you're alone, like you said, you're Rambo, that's a beautiful place to be in. And van life is totally possible. And my ex, I think, even wrote a book about it. Travel by Two Wheels, I think it's called. And he rode his bike. He had his bike with him the whole time too. So he would go out and ride, and he did some pretty amazing stuff. That was pretty cool. I did one time travel with a friend on the back of a motorcycle across the United States, and we had a tent, and we would tent on the side of the highway. So I have done some pretty crazy stuff like that, and we foraged it for food and all that stuff, and that was a pretty cool experience uh, as well. So there are different ways you can do it if you want to be a lone wolf, and you could do it totally. But if you have a family and you have a girl. I'm almost gonna guarantee she's gonna want I'm just letting you know the comfort she probably might want and why she might bitch if she doesn't. So there you go. Just Let's be real. Um, so there you have it. Do you have any let's see, I know this. I appreciate your honesty. It just what you said is why I knew you two van life models were fake. Yeah, I'm a man, I pee in Gatorade bottle 30 times a day, okay? I mean,
That's
there are
great.
women who here's the deal, there are women who, maybe are on some kind of birth control where they don't menstruate and they can maybe don't need as much, comfort, but I can tell you from my perspective, I do. And I don't feel very comfortable unless I have access to those things during menstruation. If I'm not menstruating, okay, I'm all game, right? But but beyond that, that's kind of why women kind of need that nurturing, you know what I mean? That like I need
Yeah.
the fluffy stuff. I need to, so we could be in our divine feminine grace and, you know, whatever. Maybe, that is the sacred feminine. It is
Yeah.
when we're fully in it. So there you have it. And you men can go on your van, whatever, all you want. And then when I'm 60, I will join you guys on the road.
When I get to the crone phase.
I know. So I'll be the crone on the road, the weirdo with the white hair and like, oh yeah, I'm
Right.
all about van life. Uh, anyway, sorry, we're just totally off our rockers now. Nest home is where the heart is. Yeah, it is with women, especially. That's why they say women make it a home because it is true. We have to have our little nesting uh, locations. Um, okay, so I don't know. Do you have anything else to add, Pam? This like end of this little
Um, no, I think it was great just to kind of get on here and take a minute to talk about like yeah, what our company formed and what where our goal is, where we're headed. Like you said, our mission and our vision is I feel like we are that on that threshold of paradigm shifting, the age of Aquarius, 3D, 5D, new earth, like whatever lingo you want to use, it's all about knowing like old is falling away and a new is being rebirthed. And we're here. We are here for that foundation of something new. And I'm so beyond excited and dedicated and motivated and inspired and I'm not backing down. Like, we're going to create a school, we're going to buy land, we're going to have a retreat center, we're going to educate people, we're going to help people healing, we're going to bring in plant medicines, which will be totally, different episodes and archetypes, looking at archetypes. So I'm excited for where we're going now that we have our foundation structured. And I'm really just grateful to the audience for the people that are showing up, that are supporting us. Um, we haven't really talked about it too much yet, but our goal with the podcast, we would like to make this an avenue where we can monetize, one, just so it could continue to pay for itself, so we can, be this voice. But another big vision that Natalie and I have is we want to create a oh gosh, the word is like skipping my mind now. But scholarship funds, we want to be able to give money back to people that are trying to further their own education and sustainability through consciousness, which has so many beautiful, beautiful avenues that you can take, whether it's a breathwork coach or a yoga coach, or, being out there agriculturally in the land and helping, with these beautiful sacred mushrooms and marijuana plants and cacti and all the things. So that's our huge vision with this podcast, is to be able to earn some money through people's support so that we can give back and help other people with their education. So I think we have beautiful intentions. We have like these pure hearts, and we have all this excitement and joy. And so we can do it, right? We can do it together, but it's not going to go anywhere if we don't have the audience and the support and the people that want to see this vision flourish and that want to be a part of it. Because we are looking to expand our network, and we would love to work with other people out there that have these same goals. So keep the messages coming, keep joining in. This is just the beginning of the legacy of the work, and I'm super, super stoked. So thank you to everybody, and thanks, Natalie. I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Pam, and I love all the people that show up here, and the Ralph Williams. Oh, hi, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. I've been off for a while, but here's the deal. Like Pam said, we're looking to, yeah, to monetize, and those monetizations will be like special podcasts or trainings that we provide and stuff like that. But I know that you guys can give. I don't know how how this podcast works, or Podbean, or I know,
We're
but
figuring it out.
I
Technology is
know we're
not.
figuring it out. As much as I've done it, I just got on here and just shared forever. But we do really want to support other individuals who are like she said, looking for scholarships and trying to go back to school and serve humanity in bigger through the bigger narratives. So, we're going to be setting that up in the background. Our website should be coming out soon. And then for those who want to co-participate, eventually we'll be maybe creating a database or collecting emails so that we can start to connect and partner. If you want to partner with us, or you have some resources, are also accepted as well. If you guys have resources, or you know of a community who's operating this way that we can contact or be in connection with, so that we can start ours as well, let us know. Okay. So we love you guys. And yes, and that is why men love you, um for being women. Yes. Thank you very much, because again, we are here to restore that sacred feminine and masculine energy. The balance definitely needs to be
Yeah.
restored. It's
Yeah.
gotten out of control. So
Yep.
so there you go.
Union
So
and harmony.
yes, I know. And we love the men that are a part of that narrative as well. So kudos to you men out there
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
doing the work
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank
You
you
know,
so much.
we're
You have no
rising
idea.
together.
Thank you so much for rising up and doing the work.
Awesome. So we
Mm.
will see you on Tuesday. We will be back on, and thank you for participating. Okay. So much love.
Bye.
Bye-bye.